All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining me. It's awesome to have you join. Thrilled to have people on the line today with us to talk about 7 things to do if you're not seeing results. So thanks for carving out some time after lunch, at least on East Coast, and looking forward to diving in for some new ideas for our in-home care customers. I'm Liz. You may not have seen my face before. I have been a couple months here at the Boostpoint team. I came from Home Instead world as a recruiter and then head up operations here at a local Lancaster Home Instead office and used Boostpoint as a platform for recruiting. So was able to see it work for me, see results. When I arrived on the scene at Home Instead, there were lots of questions of how we do things, and some of the things that just from simply changing speed and mentality and just some of the approach things, we saw some pretty dramatic results in recruiting. So I'm here to share with you today some of those things that were kind of, everyone wants that like special sauce, that magic in recruitment. And I totally feel where you guys are at. Sometimes it feels like you are hitting against, some roadblocks. And so want to share some new ideas with you today. I do want to let you know this is going to be recorded. So if you'd like to go back to it, share it with a teammate, share it among other people within your network, that would be totally great. Would love to have as many people, gain insights and some ideas from this webinar. So thrilled to be here with you. Would love for you to use the chat as we talk through any questions that you might have. If you have new ideas to share, that would be amazing. Would love to dialogue with you at the end with questions and answers. So feel free to be engaging as we go. We'll try to cover some of those when we wrap up our time. So let's get started. So 7 things to do when you're not seeing results. The number one thing is don't freak out. So this is like one of my favorite memes. When you eat healthy for one day and then you check to see if your summer body is ready yet. I'm totally guilty of this. I eat a salad for one meal and I'm like, how did I not lose weight already? So this idea and concept I have heard from people in recruiting can be the same way, where it's like, I did this one thing, why hasn't it changed? And so we're so I think just our human nature is to want to see results so instantaneously that we can end up frustrated. So don't freak out. Take a deep breath. One of the things I did every single morning when I was recruiting was I told myself there are plenty of caregivers in Lancaster County to work for Home instead of just coming in and oh my gosh, where am I going to find these people? So that sort of became my mantra, and that I told myself there's plenty of people. So that would be the whole don't freak out. One other thing I think I can be guilty of, and many of you might as well. I hear the same thing from people as I've talked and met some of you and learned new customers, is that let's say you have a bad month with Boostpoint or a bad month with Indeed. The tendency can be just to throw it out. I'm so done with this, it's not working, and just quit. My encouragement to you is not to freak out and don't just throw it out. There are so many different strategies. And the way that I saw success was to have multiple streams of leads, candidates, applicants. The more you can diversify that and build up your volume, the higher the likelihood for hires. So don't freak out, stick with things. I'm not just saying that because I work for Boostpoint and that I want you to stay with the platform. I'm saying that because when you show patience and when you stick with something, you can actually learn, you can strategize, you can adjust and figure out how to make it work for you. So then it's not just this feeling of this isn't working. I think also if you have in your mind that, okay, there's going to be some tough times, there's going to be months where things aren't working in the same way. We all know in the caregiver world that there's ebbs and flows, right? So different times of the year. Around Christmas, we always see more applicants, people starting their new year. Things slow down a little bit in the summer, at least on East Coast here, that's what we experience. I'm not sure if that's your experience as well. but you're going to have times that are higher and lower. And so I think just to stay calm, stay consistent, do the things that you know to do, and just keep being creative with ideas. One thing too, instead of just being frustrated, let's use Boostpoint here. Instead of thinking, oh my gosh, this didn't work, let's look at some angles, and we're going to talk about this, things that we can change around Boostpoint that could create better results. One thing, and this is just your office related, is are you actually capitalizing on all of the benefits that you have to offer? Are there things you can actually rethink? One thing, I came in to my recruiter role and really advocated for higher pay for caregivers. I feel like that's huge, that you have something that's enticing enough to come. In this day and age, we all know that everyone sees flags with like $15 an hour, $20 an hour. They can go to Target. My whole thing about Target is like, you just don't have that meaning that you have in-home care and that connection with seniors, and that meaning that's created in the position. That's where we definitely have a leg up on competition as far as providing that meaningful employment. So think through ways that you can add more benefits, and that would help you to kind of see better results, so that when people are scrolling in their feed and they see your ad, that they actually want to click on it because it's just so great. So like, have you revisited your referral program? Have you revisited your tuition assistance program? All of the ways. And I know like a lot of you probably aren't the people that hold the pocketbooks in your company, but really to be kind of the voice for that needed, you will see more hires when you increase those things. It's directly correlated. I saw it firsthand. As soon as we increased wages, bulked up some of the benefits that we had to the job, you can see direct correlation with hires. So make sure you've exhausted them all. Stick with it. After a month of performance that isn't as dramatic as you were hoping for, just stay the course and see if you can get some better results on another month. We all know that things have seasons and times that work better than the other. And as far as like eating healthy in this meme, I don't know if I have more wise words to share here, because I am not one to give diet advice, but don't freak out, stick the course. Okay, our thing 2, get a grasp on your budget. So this is something that I had to really learn as a recruiter. And in my role here at Boostpoint, hear lots of feedback from in-home care. And I want to talk a little bit specifically about cost per hire. Before I do that, sometimes in recruitment, it feels like we're just like throwing money to the wind. So you've got bills coming in from Indeed, you've got bills coming in if you use My CNA Jobs, you've got bills coming in from maybe you're using billboards or radio ads or some of those bigger ticket items. You've got all these bills, people above you are asking for ROI on this. You've got a lot of pressure to make the most for your money. What I would really, really encourage you is to figure out your cost per hire. And this can be done per source. So even with Boostpoint, to figure out, okay, how much did we spend on Boostpoint? Keep track of your hires. You know, when you're in our platform, you can mark people as hired. That would give your, if you're looking at the dashboard, then you can see exactly how many you brought in. When you have a handle on money, and when you have a handle on how much things actually cost, you're not as prone to just go with what you feel at the time or what your emotions can, and I'm like a pretty touchy-feely person and I live a lot by my emotions. However, on this topic, it's important to know, okay, what is the data showing here? And that you're not just like, oh my gosh, this is too much. And that you realize, oh, it actually does cost a lot to hire someone. So I would say in-home care, we shoot for $250, $300 cost per hire. When you have that dollar amount in your mind, then it doesn't feel like you're running a $100 ad. It's like, oh, then I probably won't get a hire in a month. So I just want to make sure that you guys understand that thinking. With Indeed, I just bring up Indeed because I know it's like the biggest source for a lot of us. When you're sponsoring the jobs and you're getting hires, try to figure out, okay, how much did I spend? How many hires do I have? Okay, how much did that cost? You can then compare with your different sources, but then it's not this overwhelming sense of like, I don't want to spend the money on this. So get a handle on that, making sure that you pay for what you get. Some areas, so it would be area specific, and I'd be happy to talk to any of you. You can throw stuff in the chat here if you have certain questions. Certain leads, like cost per lead, it's important. In home care, we're looking at $10, $12, $13 per lead, but that's not as important as the cost per hire. Sometimes if the cost per lead is super low, and you'll see that on your dashboard right in Boostpoint, it tells us that we need to actually get a little more qualified people in the door. And so it's not always a great thing to have just a dirt cheap cost per lead, because you want to have enough, and we're going to talk about this in a second, but enough qualifiers to bring in really great people in your door. So that's what I would encourage you around budget. Talk to your team about budget, advocate for more budget. Your ad spend is so important. And then just as you're looking, don't forget about, and I want to mention this, the boots on the ground stuff too, you guys, worked like a charm for me. And it's harder to show your cost per hire or return on investment with those, but don't forget, for me, I like hit the jackpot. And I know some areas don't allow these, but yard signs, had yard signs made, put them out, like lots of hires per month from yard signs. It's crazy. It had my name on it, my number. Don't forget like pull tabs. Those work so well. Don't forget places where our caregivers hang out. I found one of the like biggest jackpots were nail salons. So I would go in there, become friends with the owner, hang my pull tabs. Storage units. People use storage units. Who knew? I don't use a storage unit, but some of our caregivers, I heard them talking and they did. So just different places that you wouldn't necessarily think of. They seem more old school. You know, Boostpoint, we are a software platform, so we are technology, but those other, things too, just make sure that you're tapping into, like I talked about in the first one, diversifying as many leads as you can get in the door and as many different sources as you can. Advertising on different platforms, whether it's My CNA Jobs, Craigslist, wherever you push the Career Builder, Monster. And I know we all want that magic bullet. Everybody wants to have the solution that will solve all of your hiring needs. And with caregivers, the volume, it's just, you have to have such an influx for the general turnover rate. So just to keep people coming in the door, would definitely encourage you to keep going, to do boots on the ground, add technology and that mix of speed and just being smart and getting this grasp on your budget. So let me know in the chat if you have any questions on that. Would be happy to answer for sure. Let's move on to qualifying questions. So one thing, if you feel like you're at a standstill and you're like, oh my gosh, everything's been the same since we started using Boostpoint, I want to see things change. Why don't you try modifying them? Here's an example here of what the lead form looks like. So do you have any caregiving experience? Do you have a valid driver's license and transportation? We have seen, and I don't think as a recruiter, I used Boostpoint, I got hired successfully, but I don't know if I had a full grasp on this, why they're so important. So let me just explain that to you briefly. So when we have an app like Facebook or Instagram, and we have people like Aunt Sally who is on there watching cat videos and hanging out all day in her house with her cats, she's scrolling and she is just clicking on all these great things that look at that girl taking care of that old person. And she's confused. She thinks she might need help, or maybe she used to be a caregiver and now she's disabled. We all know those people. You could probably list them off by name of people that like you see their application come in and you're like, oh my gosh, again, there would be people that would apply 10, 12 times within a couple weeks and they're the most unqualified. So I totally get that. That's why these are so important. So the reason why they're so important is you want to stop Aunt Sally, the cat lady, in her tracks by just submitting your form. So the easier this is for her to submit, the more like junk leads you get. So the more questions that you ask, the more specific questions you ask, the more qualified the candidate. So it may actually bring your cost per lead higher, but that's okay because it's more likely that they're qualified and more likely that they're a great potential candidate to be hired. So hopefully that makes sense to you. I talked about increasing the number. So let's say on this form only has 2, and then it would take them to the next page, which would be their contact information. Here you could ask 4, or you could change the question. Why do you have a passion for seniors? You could ask questions that aren't so easily yes, no, or asking for some feedback. Do you mind direct commuting to work 20 miles or, whatever you want to use. Would just recommend switching those up, adding more. If you have any questions on that at all, please let us know. We have some tutorials on our website when you log in that you could see. We can also help you with any of that. Our customer success team can help you with those. Sometimes, and this is what I find just in general, is like we need some sort of like variable to shake things up. So if you've been doing the same thing for a long time and you just keep doing it over and over, what do they say? They say that's the definition of insanity. So we want to change something instead of just being like, this doesn't work. We want to actually try different methods and see where we can get on that. So that is qualifying questions. Again, let me know in the chat if you have any questions at all about that. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Would be happy to dialogue more. All right, let's move on to thing 4. Thing 4 is checking your follow-up process. This is so important. So you are only as good as your follow-up process. So all these platforms you guys are using, I'm familiar with them all, mostly. Some of them I may not have, but if your follow-up process is not spot on, it's going to be really, really hard to convert these leads into hires. So we want to make sure that we don't have barriers in place that prevent people from moving forward with your company. Let's use an example. A lot of us in the industry, at least in home instead world, use pre-intent. So one thing that I've seen from experience is that when you have pre-intent, so pre-intent is a company that automatically responds to people when a lead comes in. They have some qualifying questions. They have automated texts that go out. If that is going through and then it's going into Boostpoint and those questions are being asked again and they're connecting again, it's like setting up 2 fences and telling someone who is not athletic, like, can you jump over both fences? That might be a little dramatic, but that's the idea, is like, why are we making it so hard for people to come in the company? We all say we need caregivers. We all need people, and we're like creating these barriers. So that's one thing when I strategized recruitment and in-home care is look at your whole process and see, is there any barriers I can take out of this process that would hinder? Can I just say something that I've seen in multiple offices? I've done some consulting too. If you have a big packet of application and someone walks in the door, can you not do that? Because you will get so many more people. It's just all the information right off the bat is so hard. Even in your text messages, if you're sending out, hey, complete a full application on our website. In a recruiter's world, is it ideal that that application came into the system? We have them in our ATS and we're ready to roll. Of course, that's delightful. We don't have to gather more info. We got to think like them, not what's best for us. So we want to put ourselves in their seat and figure, okay, what's the easiest way to get people in the door? Let's say I have a high school diploma, I'm a super good person that would be great with seniors, but you're going to put like a 20-page packet in front of me and ask me to fill it out. Probably not going to do that. If English isn't my first language and you hand me 20 pages, 20 might be an exaggeration, but I haven't seen 20 more than once, but it has happened. So I think it's important to just make sure we don't have these barriers in place for people. Also, I'd love to talk here about policies that you are using. Policy is so great. Process is so great. It's so important. If you have a decision maker near you in your company, start thinking through some of these policies that you have and why you have them. I'll give you an example. For instance, we always had the policy, you have to have a driver's license. If you don't have a driver's license, you can't work as a caregiver. So I started asking a question, why? What makes these people? Why? Talk to home office, talk to the state. There's no reason that we required it. Is it more convenient? Yes. We were able to identify bus routes near some of our CRCCs. So some of these retirement homes where we had clients, if I felt like the person was a great candidate and could get to that spot, that was like, and they worked the hours that we wanted, it puts you in the control seat. Why not rethink it? Like, instead of just saying, this is our rule, like, and I know I'm thinking outside the box, but I can say confidently that when you start getting creative here, you see that, yeah, you can actually see some things change as far as like, imagine, and I'm not saying you're going to do this today. Just start thinking in this way. Imagine if you opened every person that was knocked out as an unqualified candidate because of the license. Let's say they were now in your funnel. Oh, game changer, right? So just start thinking in that way. Even to resist, we are not going to interview anyone until we have their full application. Like, why? You can interact with them. You can get the questions. You can get all their information after. I just didn't see any reason to be super stringent on that. Maybe you're not, that's awesome. But just start thinking through some of these things of like, we've always done this. And then you can start just being a little more fluid and flowing with what the candidates actually need. And it can be a game changer. Speed is everything here. So your follow-up process is all about speed. It's all about connection. It's all about people feeling that human touch. I tried to, as I talked to candidates on the phone, remember like, okay, they said they lived on this road. And then if I knew, okay, this thing is near there, I might mention to them, hey, I remember you live by this pretzel shop. And they're like, all those human connection. It's like, why would they want? And I'm not like ratting on Target, but like, it makes them want to work for you and makes them want to be a part of what you're doing. So try to make those human connection as much as you can. Lots of what we're doing is automated so that we can have time to do our events and interviews and all of this, but it's really, really awesome to have, to have people just come in and feel a part of it. Okay, I have a question here. Thank you so much for asking it. New to recruiting here, what is the ideal follow-up process? So let me just share. I had a goal. I'll share my goals. You can do a lot of research on this. There will be great help online, but let me just share what I kind of used as my process. I had a goal of following up with candidates within 1 to 2 minutes of them coming in. Of course, I'm in meetings. Of course, things come up. But if I'm at my desk, I am on it. Now, our automation with Boostpoint allows you to do that. But if you have leads coming in another source in your ATS, try to be on it as quick as you can. If you're I would use multiple strategies then. So the follow-up process, text, phone call, email, any of those. Texting works the best. It's quick. People love it. Send emojis, talk like you're a real person. All of those things just draw people to your company. I was just on a Mission Care Collective was doing a call, and they talked about, they had surveyed in-home care companies saying, they asked in-home care companies, how long does it take you to respond to a candidate? People answered, I think they said within 1 hour, but then they pulled data and it was like 7 days. I could not believe it. So people's perception of how quickly they're responding was much quicker than what they actually think. So yeah, I would definitely take that. Let's say I'm going to use Liz, who asked the question. We have the same name. So cool. I would say with a Boostpoint lead, if you have Connect set up, it's going to be sending them out that text, but I would call them too. Like, let them know you're interested, try to make connection. They may not answer. That's okay. You've done due diligence. You're going to mark them then as contacted. And then you can start, your process there. A new feature, and I'll just throw this in there, You guys have probably seen that our interface updated here with Boostpoint 2.0, which we're super excited about. One of the new things that you can do with our workflows, and we'll be sending out more information at some point about this, is starting these sort of drip campaigns. So let's say no one responds to you, kind of keeps the lead warm and keeps them in touch with you instead of them just dropping off. So yeah, would be really beneficial to have those running kind of in the background for the people that don't respond. Then let's keep talking about follow-up process, and then we'll move on here. Follow-up process, you also want to make sure that people have interview reminders. So once you set things up, let's say you do a phone screen, find out like, okay, they're a great candidate. They check all the main boxes, set up an interview. If you don't use something like pre-intent or something automated, for months, I sent texts from my trusty I had a work phone, and I manually sent texts. And that's when my volume started increasing, is just hey, this is Liz. Can't wait to see you at this address at this time. If you have to do manual, do it, because it will actually change. My show up rate dramatically changed when I just hustled and got people in the door just from making sure I was touching base with them. So those are some of the basics. There is more, yes, to follow-up process, but those are, send them a thank you for the interview. All those the more connection points you have, the more success you'll see. Humans want to feel loved, appreciated. They want to feel a sense of belonging. So the more that you can create that within your company and within your hiring culture is great. The more we create this whole, who can make it, who can get in the door, the harder it is. So get creative, work fast, work smart there with your follow-up process. Thanks for the great question. And we will see you, Devin. Yeah, somebody had to jump off, but loving it. And definitely we'll send out the recording here when it's over. All right, here's our next one. Get creative and think outside the box. That's actually me jumping in the air, holding one of my yard signs. Super cheesy. In that moment of taking the picture out in the front of my office, I was like, this is so dorky. Did it get noticed on someone's feed? Yes, because I look ridiculous and it's just fun and it's silly. And then people love lists of why should I do this? At least I love lists, and I think people do. It's just the way our minds work. So put out some of my benefits there. So this was actually the ad that I ran through Boostpoint when I was a recruiter. I had a caregiver website that was separate from our home instead page, just to make it easier for caregivers to be able to get in touch and apply there. This is an example of thinking outside the box. You can totally use stock photos, whatever company you're in. I know we have some people from lots of different companies, Visiting Angels, Comfort Keepers, lots of different companies on the call today. You all have stock photos that you'd be welcome to use. But if you want to get creative, I created this in Canva. I am not a graphic designer. Graphic designers kind of laugh at Canva. So I keep it on the down low that this is it's not really a talent, but they give you templates. So if you haven't looked into it, it's great. Stick to stock photos if art is not your thing at all, because you don't want it to look too bad. But get creative. So think through okay, what can I lead with this month? What are we doing that could get people in the door? Eye-catching graphics. For me, what is it so put yourself in their shoes. What is it when you're scrolling? And we all do it 3 to 4 hours a day is the average. So in the evening, I've got 2 kids. I check out for a bit. What is it that stops me in my tracks when I'm scrolling mindlessly through Instagram? It's usually catchy. I mean, it's stuff that I'm into too, but creative. So try to get creative. Think our templates are proven to work, but all I want to say is if you're not seeing the results, try to use your own creativity and think, are there certain things in your area that would speak to people? We know from the data that we are confident in our ad templates. At the same time, get creative. If you want to change it up, change it up. Funny stuff gets attention. The next slide I'm going to talk about is kind of funny, and it got great results. But yeah, the more you can get creative, the better. Just to mention this whole getting creative, thinking outside the box. This is not technology related, but just recruitment wise. So I started something called Coffee and Conversations, One of my barriers for candidates was in the southern end of our county. A lot of them did not want to come through the city. They perceive it to be big and scary. I tried to figure out, okay, what is preventing them? And then I realized, oh my gosh, they don't want to drive through our city, which it's pretty small. If you're in a big metropolitan area, it's not, you probably wouldn't call it a city. But anyways, I decided to come to them. I got to know this owner of a family restaurant. I didn't know him from Adam. I came in, developed a relationship with him, somehow got in his graces to offer walk-in interviews in his restaurant. He was hiring himself. So I'm like, I don't even know how he's letting me do this, but he did. I put signs out, balloons out, advertised it, called it Coffee and Conversations. Lots of people came. This was during COVID. Like, honestly, some of the stuff, it's like, you just have to try it and see what works. Some weeks nobody would come. Some weeks I'd have 6 people come. I had applications there. I did interviews on the spot. I hired people. They worked for us for, I mean, they're still there. So the benefit of just thinking creative, had I not gone to them, I don't think that they would have come. Now, did they need to come for training in the office? Yes, but why did they come? Because I built the relationship with them. They felt safe. They knew the company was worthwhile for them to come. But if anything, if anybody else is feeling a barrier, they might need that human connection. Another question here. Thanks for one. Has anyone seen success with walk-in interviews? Yes, I think I definitely have seen success. Put out a sign, we called it Walk-in Wednesdays, did kind of like that sandwich board sign with some balloons, able to pull it out when things feel slow. I also had a sign that wasn't just Wednesday, just like if things were slower on a day and I had some time availability for interviewing, definitely did that. I think that it's kind of something to just have in your back pocket. I wouldn't like structure your recruiting strategy around it, but I think the more, like I said, the more sources you can put in your whole deal, the better. So I would encourage you to do that. Let them come. Don't require tons from them in the moment. Let them feel your office, be a part of the warmth that you can create for them, build that relationship, and see where you can go from there. Great question. All right. The next one is try hosting a hiring event with Boostpoint's help. So I don't think that many people are, that many people are doing this. This is the funny ad that I'm like, oh my gosh, a grandma, we're in senior care. She's listening to headphones. She's like jamming out. Why would anyone not want to click on this? I adore her. She's great. It's a stock photo that I looked up, senior wearing headphones. And I just thought like, she's so cool. So made the ad around this, have you heard? So you can see at the top of my ad, psst, have you heard? We have caregiver's position available. So it's like interactive. It's asking them a question. We're having a hiring party. So let me just tell you how this works. So I don't know if any of you have used Eventbrite. You can see at the bottom of the ad, that's the link that's there. You can set up a free account, eventbrite.com. Create a page for your event. It's kind of like a Facebook event. It allows people to RSVP. You can create free tickets so people aren't paying for it. What I did was I created the Eventbrite, and then on Boostpoint, when you're going to create an ad, you can pick your lead form, like your recruiting leads ad, or you can pick your increased web traffic. That's what I did. So I did an increased web traffic, which I wouldn't recommend for just getting caregivers, but for something like an event, it actually worked really well. So I put the website that I was sending people to was this Eventbrite page. Instead of just sending them to our website and where they have to find something, I sent them right to the event page, had lots of RSVPs. Honestly, I also had, some of you might be my CNA Jobs customers, and they let you do one event per year. I had that free to use. So anyways, I publicized it with Boostpoint on Facebook. I put a post on Craigslist. It was obviously on Eventbrite. I used my CNA Jobs. I had 5 hires from one event, which I was like, and this you can see is November 2020, which is like COVID. People aren't going out. It was super successful. And I think in total we had like 14 or 15 come, which is a really higher rate. And I would highly recommend it. This is where you get creative with our app and with our platform, is like, how can you use it to benefit you? How can you look for ways to get creative and get people in the door? Side note, and this is just recruitment advice, at this event had, because it was COVID, I know COVID's still a thing, but like where we were more on lockdown, I had a company prepare like tiny little charcuterie boxes. So no one was like eating, like people would just grab a box. It looked beautiful. Same thing for a little like brownie bite thing. So people still felt like they were getting treats, had it like fun. It was, yeah, super, super fun to see so many hires come from it. And it's just one of those things that you don't know until you try. I can't promise you're going to have the great success that I did with that event, but totally worth trying, and would love to see you do that. Happy to help you like think through this. So yeah, keep me posted if you decide to try something like this, and definitely saw some great success. Did multiple hiring parties. That was the most successful one. We did some stuff around Christmas where we gave away Christmas gifts, had hires from it as well. So yeah, just kind of open up your opportunities to lots of different ways to get people in the door. All right. Let me see here. There we go. Drink the growth mindset Kool-Aid. I love this meme. Just drink the Kool-Aid. Okay. That would be great. That's Office Space reference if you're not familiar with the movie. But honestly, I don't know how all of your companies are, but in home instead world, we are constantly being given message about growth mindset and where you're at. I would highly recommend drinking the Kool-Aid, if that makes any sense. I'm a person that just lives by this, but also in your work, you will see dramatic change if you can adopt this mindset. What I mean is when you have these thoughts, that become beliefs and turn into actions and then bring results, like all of that is connected. So if you're in a headspace of like, oh my gosh, I can't bring in a hire, or oh my gosh, yeah, this is so frustrating, nothing works, it's all dried up. I think I just heard someone a couple of weeks ago tell me they think that they have exhausted all of the potential applicants in their area, and they live in like a pretty populated area. I tried to just introduce some different thinking there, but if you get in that place of thinking, this is just it, it's over, I can't do this, then it's going to be hard to succeed. So would just really highly recommend you keeping that growth mindset to think, how do I see these challenges as opportunities? How do I see these problems as things that I can help overcome? How can I develop strategies around them instead of just pounding the same things over and over, like I talked about before, that insanity piece, just to get creative and think, okay, how can I change this? The way that we approach things actually matters. The way that we think through things actually matters. So would just highly encourage you to stay positive. And that's like, I'm never one to be like toxic positivity, like everything's like burning around you. And obviously we're not like, it's great. But as much as you can in your recruitment practices to just stay focused on, okay, what's working right now? What do we need to tweak? Where can we push into? If you see something, and this is like a little bit woo-woo, but if you see something open up where you're like, oh my gosh, these yard signs work so well, go in that direction, like follow that and see where you can go. And in 2 months, it might stop, and that's okay. Don't give up right away. Like I talked about on our first slide, is like not to just like, don't freak out, don't give up, don't throw in the towel before you've given something a real try. But yeah, give it a chance and let yourself kind of get outside of your comfort zone of what feels familiar. You may have been trained by someone who, played it super safe or didn't have lots of creative ideas. So just let yourself kind of dream and see how you could move into things. So that is all I have. I want to recap real quick. I want to touch on the main takeaways. Don't freak out. Stay the course. Don't think that you need to just pitch whatever you're doing because it doesn't seem to be working this month. Give it a fair chance. Reach out. Will you guys reach out? Like, I'd love to connect with you. If you need help or support, just let us know. Getting your grasp on your budget. So thinking through money instead of letting it be a feeling of like, oh my gosh, I'm paying so much for this and I'm not seeing results. You might be spending $400 on an ad, but that might be your cost per hire. So it's all about perspective there, where it feels like, oh my gosh, I spent $400, but that might be your average. So just get realistic around money. Modify your qualifying questions. If you haven't seen change or people coming in the door, think about changing this, increasing it, changing the way that we're asking them. Remember here to think outside the box of who we're knocking out that is not in our funnel anymore. Could we potentially rethink solutions around the fact that they could work for us? We can't change things like age, okay? We can't change things like background check. Those are all things we have to abide by. But what are other things that we're saying, oh, we're not going to hire them because of this? And where do we need to get creative? Checking your follow-up process. So just making sure you're being super fast, super smart. Develop that warmth and connection that they want to join your office. The number of people that said like, oh, I applied to this other, like one of our other competitors up the road, I never heard back. Or I applied to a competitor and I didn't, the door was locked and no one let me in, or some of those stories. And then if you create this experience that want to be a part of, it's a game changer. Get creative, think outside the box, think how you can improve your ads. What can you do differently? What can you create? What can you rethink as far as things out in the community, like that coffee and conversation I did where I went to people and brought them into the company that way. Trying a hiring event. Would love to see people do this and see success. Events are fun. I always love events. Not everyone does, but it can be fun to break up your own cycle of recruiting too. Like, let's do something, I don't know, quarterly or something like that, just to bring people in the door in that way. And then back to growth mindset. It's kind of like sandwiching our don't giving up and not freaking out, and then our Kool-Aid. So salad and Kool-Aid is like on our front and back, but yeah, just stay the course. Try to like take those limiting thoughts and chuck them out. If you can, stay positive. Would love to see you guys see success for sure. So love to see if there's any questions here to talk through. Okay, so someone's receiving candidates that are outside of their area. So like their location, what can they do about that? So you can address some of that. We can't address it, unfortunately, on the Facebook ads. We can't change the location, or we can't ask them their location on the lead form. It's just one of those things that Facebook sees as discriminatory. We can't ask age or location. You can say, are you willing to drive to Oak Ridge or something like that? So that could be a way that you ask it. You can change your radius. The minimum on Facebook is 15 miles, but you can also put different pinpoints in, remember, on the platform. If you have any questions or need more information around this location thing, let me know. One thing that I found fun was to try to identify a location, like a town area, and work geographically, let's say for a month. So an area close by Ephrata, I would blitz Ephrata. I call it boots on the ground recruit. So like what I talked about, those like pull tabs, nail salons, all the places people hang out, in addition to all the technology lining up. So Boostpoint ads running, posting job ads saying, I need caregivers in Ephrata. All that we saw because we had the client need. You're always trying to balance that client caregiver balance. But as soon as I did that, we hired tons from the area and were able to take on clients that we didn't have to say no to. So that's my heart, is like, especially in the in-home care, it's very dear to my heart. I feel passionate about the work and know that the more we can do for recruitment, more caregivers we can get in the door, the more seniors we can help and not turn away. So I know you all share that common goal. So thank you so much for your time. I would love to also mention that I do offer, if you would like any recruiting like consulting work, I'd be happy to do that. We have an hourly rate for that. Feel free to email me with any questions. If it's just general practices, would be happy to help. If it's questions with the Boostpoint platform, just let us know. Our customer success team, we'll be happy to help you out. So we'll be sending a link. There's also going to be a downloadable thing to take away on your email, just in follow-up, just to keep these points front and center in your mind. Thanks so much for joining me. I had fun. I'm glad that we got to share this time and hope that we can do it again soon. We'll probably dive into some different educational stuff around our new features and new platforms. So would love to see you there. And yeah, have a great day. See you guys.